Money, in its most seductive form, is a mirage shimmering in the distance, promising freedom, significance, and dominion. But like all mirages, it retreats the closer one approaches. The powerful know this. They have always known it. That is why they never chase money, they create it. Not in the crude sense of minting coins or printing bills, but in the deeper, more Machiavellian sense of defining the very conditions under which money exists. The masses see wealth as a destination, something to be reached, claimed, displayed. The powerful see it as a mechanism, something to be constructed, controlled, and circulated. They understand that money, like faith or fear, is a product of architecture. It exists because systems decree that it does, and those systems are designed by minds who do not compete within them, but above them. To chase money is to admit dependency. It is to bow to a system someone else built, a hierarchy someone else defined, a value someone else dictated. That is the fundamental error of the ambitious but unwise. They believe participation equals progress. They measure their worth by accumulation, not by authorship. They build stacks instead of structures. They forget that no empire was ever founded by the man counting coins. It was founded by the one who decided what the coin meant. Machiavelli understood this centuries before the modern market. He watched men sell their loyalty for gold, and rulers trade their kingdoms for credit. He saw that money was never truly about possession, it was about belief. It was a story told convincingly enough that others acted as if it were real. And those who could write that story, those who could dictate what counted as wealth, became untouchable. They didn't earn value, they defined it. This is why the powerful seem detached from the rituals of commerce. They do not chase paychecks or speculate in trends. They move slower, deeper. Their wealth is not measured in digits, but in gravity, the invisible pull that makes others orbit around their influence. When they speak, capital flows. When they withdraw, markets tremble. Their fortune is not in the numbers they possess, but in the obedience those numbers command. To the ordinary man, wealth is a prize. To the Machiavellian, it is a lens, a means to see human nature in its rawest form. Offer a man gold, and you'll witness his vanity. Threaten his income, and you'll see his fear. Manipulate either, and you control his choices. Money is the modern scepter, but only in the hands of one who understands that it rules best when unseen. The error of our age is that visibility has replaced power. People shout their success, flaunt their assets, declare their victories, believing that exposure equals dominance. But exposure is decay. What is seen can be targeted. What is measured can be taxed. What is known can be neutralized. The powerful hide, not because they are afraid, but because opacity is strategy. They do not display their wealth, they disperse it, fragment it, disguise it within entities, trusts, shells, and symbols. They make it impossible to distinguish the man from the mechanism. Money, after all, is a language, and the powerful are fluent in its subtext. They know that the digits on a screen or the contracts in a vault are not wealth itself, but manifestations of faith in a system of value. Destroy that faith, and the numbers collapse. Strengthen it, and they multiply without limit. Thus, real mastery lies not in accumulation, but in persuasion, in the capacity to make others believe that your creation has worth. To chase money, then, is to chase an illusion controlled by another man's pen. To create money is to become that pen. It is to write the laws that govern exchange, to establish the narrative that makes wealth possible, to determine which forms of value the world must obey. The powerful do not run after opportunities. They design the conditions that produce them. They do not ask for permission. They engineer necessity. This is the distinction between the merchant and the monarch, the entrepreneur and the emperor. The merchant trades value that already exists. The emperor defines value itself. One is bound by the market, the other creates the market's parameters. And so, while most fight to climb the ladder of wealth, the powerful build the building itself, deciding how high it rises, who may enter, and what the climb is worth. Machiavelli would say, "He who depends on fortune to rise must bow when fortune turns." The powerful never bow. They build engines that produce fortune even in chaos. They own motion, not moments. For them, money is not a pursuit, but a pulse, something they generate, regulate, and, when necessary, conceal. This is why, in every age, the powerful appear almost indifferent to money. Their relationship to it is mechanical, not emotional. They use it to test, to influence, to observe. They know that wealth amplifies character. It reveals the disciplined and exposes the foolish. To the disciplined, money becomes a tool of expansion. To the foolish, it becomes a mirror that blinds. Thus, the first step toward real power is not to seek more money, but to abandon the idea that it can grant power at all, because once you stop needing it, you begin to control those who do. You see the invisible strings that make people dance, the contracts they fear breaking, the reputations they must preserve, the lifestyles they cannot afford to lose. And in that awareness lies the first spark of creation. The powerful never chase money, because chasing implies distance. They know that money is not ahead of them. It moves beneath them, through channels they designed. Their task is not to reach it, but to keep it flowing, because in stillness, money dies. But in movement, their movement, it becomes eternal. Creation, in the world of power, has little to do with invention and everything to do with design. The powerful do not create in the artistic sense, they create in the architectural sense. They build frameworks that define how others must move, what they must value, and which doors they must pass through to reach their desires. This is what it means to create money. It is not to mint coins, but to shape the boundaries of belief that make those coins matter. Machiavelli would have recognized the brilliance of this quiet creation. He understood that authority is not granted by decree. It is engineered through dependency. The prince who can make his subjects rely on him for their survival need not shout his power. It becomes self-perpetuating. In the same way, the modern Machiavellian does not compete for wealth. He builds ecosystems in which his value becomes indispensable. He positions himself not as one of many, but as the junction through which value must pass. The great deception of modern life is that wealth seems democratic. Anyone, we are told, can build it. Anyone can hustle, invest, or innovate their way into prosperity. But this optimism is a useful illusion, one maintained by those who benefit from the chase. The powerful do not run this race. They design the track, set the rules, and sell the shoes. They know that a population chasing money is a population distracted, predictable, and malleable. When people define themselves by pursuit, they become prisoners of momentum. To create money is to reverse that dynamic. It is to make others run while you measure their pace. It is to define value so that every transaction, every movement of capital, attention, or ambition feeds back into your structure. The powerful do not need to take from others directly. They simply ensure that the system they built rewards behavior that serves them. They turn psychology into infrastructure. This is how modern empires are born, not through conquest, but through construction. A platform that connects millions becomes a mint. It prints influence instead of currency, and the world trades in it. A corporation that defines the standard for communication, entertainment, or trade effectively creates a private economy, one measured in attention, data, or habit. The powerful understand that whoever defines the medium defines the meaning. That is the new alchemy of our age, converting perception into currency. The merchant sells a product. The architect sells the framework through which all products are exchanged. That is why true wealth today is measured not in holdings, but in control points. The one who controls distribution of goods, of credit, of attention, wields more power than any billionaire hoarding his fortune in the open, because flow is the new fortress. As long as others must pass through your gates to move forward, your influence endures. Machiavelli would remind us that control is never about visibility. The ruler who boasts of power invites rebellion. The one who hides his influence behind systems, laws, traditions, markets, technologies becomes eternal. The modern prince rules through the algorithm, the network, the unseen mechanism that dictates behavior without command. That is the perfection of power, obedience without recognition. To create money, then, is to create the environment in which belief turns to value. It requires not force, but narrative. Money is a story people agree to believe, a collective fiction that functions only as long as the audience refuses to look backstage. The powerful are not actors in that play. They are the playwrights. They decide which myths of worth the world will serve, and they understand that as long as people equate visibility with success, the invisible will always rule. Look closely, and you'll see that every empire, every corporation, every ideology hides the same secret. They monetize trust. They build systems so intuitive, so essential, that people stop questioning them. Trust becomes habit, and habit becomes revenue. The powerful do not persuade, they condition. They design patterns of behavior so consistent that obedience feels natural. This is the art of quiet creation. It is not the brilliance of the inventor or the charisma of the leader. It is the patience of the strategist. It requires years of invisibility, of slow construction, of letting others take credit while you take control. Because the powerful understand something the ambitious never grasp. Fame is a leash. The more the world watches you, the less you can move. The more they praise you, the more they define you. But anonymity, that is freedom. It is the power to adjust, to adapt, to dissolve and reappear under a different guise. Invisibility is not absence, it is insulation. The powerful do not need to be seen to be felt. They move like architects in the dark, designing the ceiling under which the visible fight for light. They fund both sides, shape both narratives, control both exits. They do not need victory, only influence over the terms of victory. Money, to them, is an instrument, a lever of behavior. Its true use is diagnostic. It shows who can be bought, who can be broken, who can be trusted. It reveals loyalties before they must be tested. The powerful use it to chart the moral geography of those around them, to identify hunger and weakness. And once they have mapped that terrain, they no longer need the tool, they own the map. That is why they never chase money, because the chase itself is confession. To pursue is to declare need, and need is the root of control. The powerful avoid the posture of pursuit because they understand that desire is the leash by which most men are led. To be untouchable, one must sever the connection between wealth and identity. Money must serve as a medium of influence, not a measure of worth. Those who chase riches announce themselves as servants of circumstance. Those who create riches redefine circumstance itself. And in that act of definition, subtle, silent, and structural, they achieve what the chasers never will: sovereignty. Power begins where dependence ends. That is the first law of sovereignty, and it applies as much to wealth as it does to nations. Those who chase money have already forfeited power, because they rely on a system that decides when, how, and whether they will be rewarded. The powerful, instead, position themselves where value originates. They do not ask for resources, they become the source itself. Machiavelli observed that men are governed by two forces, necessity and illusion. The powerful master both. They make themselves necessary by providing what others cannot live without, and they sustain the illusion that this provision is benevolence rather than design. In reality, it is a contract, silent but binding, in which the many trade their freedom for convenience, their judgment for certainty, and their independence for the comfort of structure. That structure is where wealth is born. The genius of modern power lies in this. It has made creation invisible. The system manufactures needs, then sells their solutions. It creates scarcity in abundance, and abundance in scarcity. The powerful have understood that the greatest profit is not in selling what people want, but in teaching them what to want. The poor chase satisfaction, the powerful engineer desire. Money, then, becomes a mirror of influence. Every dollar spent is a confession of belief. Every trend followed is an admission of trust. The powerful see economies not as markets, but as mirrors, reflecting the psyche of the masses. They do not fight the flow of desire, they redirect it. They build mechanisms that transform emotion into capital, loyalty into leverage, and attention into gold. This is why the powerful rarely speak of money at all. They speak of networks, foundations, ecosystems, infrastructures, abstractions that sound noble, but conceal the same ancient truth. Control the means of value creation, and you control those who depend on it. To the Machiavellian mind, wealth is not something to be spent or shown. It is something to be anchored. It must be embedded so deeply into the fabric of society that even your enemies cannot escape contributing to it. Consider the empire builders of every age, merchants who became monarchs, industrialists who became legislators, technologists who became gods of data. Their genius was not in accumulation, but in embedding themselves within necessity. They made their presence indistinguishable from the function of daily life. When you cannot live without a system, you cannot rebel against it. That is the final stage of power, when obedience no longer feels like obedience. Machiavelli would recognize this as the perfection of political art, domination through dependence, disguised as freedom. He wrote that the best fortress is not stone, but loyalty. In our age, loyalty is economic, not emotional. It is the subscription, the contract, the algorithmic loop that keeps people returning without question. The powerful design these loops. They understand that the mind can be captured long before the market ever is. To create money, in this sense, is to create rhythm, predictable cycles of human behavior that generate value automatically. The modern prince need not conquer land. He conquers time. He makes others' minutes flow through his machinery. Each click, each payment, each habit, all become tributaries, feeding a river that never stops flowing toward his domain. He does not chase currency. Currency comes to him as the inevitable result of design. But creation is not static. The powerful must continuously reinvent the narrative of value to prevent stagnation. What is believed to be valuable today may become worthless tomorrow, and the wise ruler never allows belief to collapse. This is where their artistry lies, in renewing illusion just as it begins to fade. They convert obsolescence into opportunity, crisis into continuity. They do not resist the collapse of one order. They orchestrate the birth of the next. Here, we see the distinction between wealth and sovereignty. Wealth is the possession of resources. Sovereignty is the possession of narrative. The powerful do not hoard gold, they hoard belief. They control the definitions, the standards, the language through which value is perceived. And because belief determines value, they can create it from nothing, again and again, as long as they control the stage on which it appears. To the uninitiated, this looks like magic, the spontaneous generation of wealth from thin air. But to the Machiavellian, it is simply governance. Power is not the manipulation of people, but the manipulation of their environment so subtly that they manipulate themselves. The prince does not tell the people what to do, he tells them who they are. And once identity is shaped, action follows without force. Money is merely the visible residue of this invisible architecture. It is what remains when belief crystallizes into transaction. The powerful are indifferent to its form, whether it is gold, credit, or code, because they operate at a level beyond its manifestation. They understand that every economy is temporary, but the human hunger that fuels it is eternal. They do not chase money, they choreograph desire. This understanding grants them an almost divine patience. They can watch empires rise and fall without panic, because their loyalty is not to any specific asset or age. Their allegiance is to the mechanics of control, the timeless interplay between need and power. The merchant fears collapse. The sovereign prepares for it, knowing that collapse is merely the soil in which new empires grow. To create money, then, is to master cycles. It is to know when to allow decay and when to seed renewal. The powerful do not cling to forms, they cling to function. If paper burns, they mint digital. If currency inflates, they create tokens. If the market rejects ownership, they sell access. Every collapse is simply another conversion, the transmutation of old faith into new currency. And yet, through all transformations, one truth remains: those who chase are always late. The powerful are already building what others will one day chase. They live one horizon ahead, designing the next illusion while the current one still blinds the crowd. They do not follow the trend. They build the mechanism that defines it. To them, money is not the reward of foresight. It is the byproduct of structure. When others see chaos, they see architecture. When others panic, they plan. They are not gamblers at the table. They own the house. And in owning it, they ensure that fortune, no matter how it turns within their design. The powerful understand that money, like every illusion, must evolve to survive. Its form changes from gold to paper, from credit to code, but its essence remains: belief in an exchangeable promise. The masses chase that promise. The powerful write it. They know that the real game is not accumulation, but authorship, the ability to define what the world calls value. To create money is to create meaning, and meaning, when accepted by others, becomes law. This is why the powerful never fear the collapse of a currency or a market. They know that money dies the moment faith shifts, but they are the ones who determine where that faith lands next. When the old systems crumble, they are already building the next cathedral of belief. They turn destruction into design, and uncertainty into opportunity. Every crash is a clearing, every crisis a reallocation of faith. They thrive not by preserving systems, but by outliving them. Machiavelli would have recognized this rhythm as the essence of power, the ability to remain indispensable while everything else changes form. In The Prince, he warned that fortune is a river. It floods, it recedes, and only the ruler who builds channels can master it. The modern Machiavellian does precisely this. He builds channels for wealth, not walls. He allows flow, but never chaos. He knows that money must circulate to survive, and so he designs the current. This is the secret the ambitious never learn. Power is not speed, but position. The man who chases fortune may move faster, but he moves within another man's design. The one who creates fortune moves slower, but he defines the terrain itself. Every system of exchange, financial, social, technological, is merely a landscape shaped by such architects. The powerful place themselves where gravity works for them, not against them. They do not fight the flow, they tilt the world. The ultimate proof of creation lies not in possession, but in perpetuity. The powerful do not merely acquire wealth, they build mechanisms that generate it long after they are gone. This is their immortality. To construct systems that function without their presence, yet continue to reflect their will. Foundations, corporations, ideologies all serve this purpose. Each one extends the hand of the dead into the decisions of the living. That is the truest form of creation, when power outlives its creator. This is why dynasties endure while fortunes fade. Money without structure evaporates. Structure without visibility endures. The powerful design legacies, not accounts. They build networks of influence that feed each other in perpetuity, laws that protect their interests, institutions that sanctify their image, narratives that justify their dominance. The weak chase comfort. The powerful chase continuity. And continuity demands detachment. The powerful are not sentimental about wealth because they understand its role as a tool, not an identity. To cling to any form of wealth is to misunderstand it. True power comes from agility, from the ability to dissolve and reform, to abandon one illusion when it ceases to serve, and to craft another before others even notice the shift. The powerful are shapeshifters in plain sight, wearing the mask the age demands. This is why they are misunderstood. To the ordinary eye, they seem contradictory, ruthless yet benevolent, absent yet omnipresent, detached yet decisive. But these are not contradictions, they are strategies. To create money is to create belief, and belief requires tension, the sense that something greater is always at play, that unseen hands move the pieces. Mystery is leverage. The powerful cultivate it deliberately. Machiavelli would have called this the art of appearing virtuous while serving necessity. The powerful know that morality is a currency, just like gold, valuable only as long as others believe in it. They spend it when needed, replenish it when convenient, but never let it define their limits. For them, ethics are optics, virtue is strategy. What matters is not the purity of action, but the effectiveness of outcome. They understand that the world rewards results, not righteousness. In the end, creation is not about wealth, but about will. The powerful impose their interpretation of reality upon others until it becomes consensus. They do not argue, they design systems that make argument irrelevant. They do not persuade, they create incentives that make persuasion unnecessary. Power, in its highest form, is not control by force, but control by framework. It is the ability to make people choose what you would have chosen for them, believing it to be their own idea. Money is merely the first lesson in this craft. Once you can create it, you understand how easily everything else can be created: belief, loyalty, morality, even truth. The powerful see the world not as it is, but as clay awaiting form. Their wealth is not the clay itself, but the hand that shapes it. And because most men are too busy chasing the finished sculptures, they never see the sculptor standing in the shadows. This is the Machiavellian paradox. To hold power, you must seem not to need it. To possess wealth, you must seem indifferent to it. The powerful feign detachment, not because they are cold, but because attachment exposes weakness. Desire is visible, control is silent. They live by restraint, not of appetite, but of expression. They know that the loudest man in the room is the least dangerous. The quiet one owns the room. In truth, creation is the only way to escape servitude. As long as you chase what others have defined, you remain their subject. To become sovereign, you must define your own value, not by imitation, but by origination. You must build systems, not seek seats. Write laws, not follow them. Shape narratives, not consume them. The powerful never wait for opportunity. They architect inevitability. And so, the lesson of Machiavelli endures across centuries. Fortune favors not the bold, but the prepared, not the one who runs fastest, but the one who built the road. The powerful do not chase money, because money is motion, and they are the gravity that moves it. They do not compete within systems, they compose them. In the end, the difference between the rich and the powerful is simple. The rich have money. The powerful decide what money means. One lives by numbers, the other lives by narrative. And when the narrative shifts, as it always does, only one remains standing: the creator. Because in every age, from Florence to Wall Street, from palaces to boardrooms, one truth has never changed: those who chase will always serve those who design the chase.